Perfect. All right. So, my name's Ian. I work on a plugin to Foreman called Catello, which integrates nicely with Pulp. I had a talk earlier today teaching about what Catello does, and now I'm going to be going over bootable containers and how they fit in with Foreman, Catello, and our integration with Pulp. So, kind of depends on what y'all are interested in, but I'll be going over what we have now, some ideas for the future, and if anyone has any ideas as well, I'd be happy to hear them, because what we're really wondering is how people are going to use these bootable containers, how they're using them today, since it's a relatively new concept, or at least the technology is relatively new, I'll say. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump on in. So, to get a feeling, how many of you have heard of Foreman? Excellent, okay. So, Foreman, if you don't know, is a tool for managing physical and virtual servers. It's a single web interface you can go to trigger things like configuration management jobs like Ansible, Puppet runs. It's an inventory. You can provision with it. We have numerous providers. We do bare metal provisioning. We manage that for you. You can install in hypervisors. You can also do patching with it with this plugin called Catello. And Catello integrates with Pulp so that you can bring packages into your infrastructure, mirror them from local sources, and then install them on your machines. And Foreman kind of uses these three: provisioning, configuration management, monitoring. The monitoring is more like fact collection, but I digress. Now, we can start talking a bit about container things. So, when I talk about all this, this is all within Catello. The bootable container, now, there's a lot of names for bootable containers. I'm probably going to say all of them in different contexts. Bootable containers, I might call them boot C machines, or in the, I guess, the productized name for it in RHEL is image mode, just in case I slip. But new features, without even, with going even beyond bootable containers. Firstly, OCI Flatpaks are supported in Catello now, in case anyone didn't know. I'll show some pictures later, but you can scan Flatpak registries, turn those Flatpaks into container repos, sync them, and we show a bit of information about it. And Pulp has added support for that. I mean, that feature I think is maybe a year old at this point. Bootable container support, so host registration, we show some information when you register your bootable container host. Also, I'll talk a little bit later about what that actually is, in case folks don't know. We show an overview of what booted containers you have in your environment, like by the path that you would pull from. We have support for transiently installing packages. Bootable containers are immutable, so the only way to install RPMs is with a transient flag. And if you use our remote execution feature, without this feature, it would just fail. It would say you can't install that RPM, but we actually now install them transiently. And then we also have tracking for these transient packages, because of course you want to know if your packages are going to disappear when you reboot, thanks to the immutable environment that is bootable containers. We also have a new container images UI. If you use containers in Foreman, you might know that our UI is the old Angular one. And we have a new page written in React. And we're trying to lay it out in a way that makes more sense. Like Quay.io, for example, we're taking some inspiration from there. And another small thing, if anyone here uses load-balanced smart proxies in Foreman, or I should say in Catello, because it's for content, we now support container images for that. So a niche feature, but if you scale a lot, you might appreciate that. Now, will say the transient package tracking, this is pending adoption into Subscription Manager. Subscription Manager sends a package profile, and now we want that profile to tell you if it's a transient or a persistent package.
And does Subscription Manager already send a package profile without that flag?
Yes. That's a feature that's been around for many, many years.
Well, I mean for bootable containers.
Yes, exactly. What's nice about these bootable containers, and actually, let me explain the concepts first, and then we'll go into it. So, for people who don't actually, how many people know about bootc, bootable containers, that kind of thing? Okay. So, a quick refresher then, or maybe you'll learn something from this, who knows? In a very nutshell, they're container images used to provision and update OS-tree-based immutable machines. And these containers, bootable containers, are built to work with this project bootc. There's a nice quote I found here. I think it sums it up nicely, better than I could ever. And it's actually a double quote. The bootc documentation summarizes bootable containers as transactional in-place operating system updates using OCI container images. In other words, updates to the OS are shipped by container images. So, and it goes on to talk about what has to be in the image. So these are very special container images. The idea is you start with this base, you build on top of it. They differ technically from, I guess, what you'd call application containers in two ways. The OS tree part of it is very important. And then the bootc image has kernel enough packages to actually physically boot. And the OS tree part is important because these images are immutable. If you understand those concepts, but you haven't used bootc so much, I just have some facts here. So bootc is this interface for managing the booted containers. When you install one of these machines physically, you'll have bootc there, and that's how you manage the content. If you're in the installation process, or if you're even converting an ordinary traditional host into a bootable one, you can use bootc install. This is typically used by tools. So Anaconda uses bootc install to install the machine. Bootc upgrade, that lets you pull a new container image, which is powering your host. And this, I believe it auto updates by default. Bootc switch is what I think is very cool and I think catches people's attention, because if you, say, have a RHEL 9 host, you can just run bootc switch, reboot, and now it's a RHEL 10 host. And you can switch between different environments. If you need to roll back, there's a rollback option. And then another thing here, if you want to install RPMs, like I was getting at before, because of the OS tree base, which makes this immutable, you have to install them transiently. So it installs the files in a part of the file system that you can edit. If you reboot, they are gone. So transient package installs, really something I would only recommend for debug situations. And however, we are making sure that Foreman will be able to track it for you, again, because if you have users, I don't know, installing these packages without you knowing, you would want to know if they're transient, especially if it's a security update. Now, some folks say that this transient feature is nice because if there is a security update and you don't have time to rebuild a container image, you could theoretically just install the security update. But again, if you reboot, it's gone, and then you're back to being vulnerable. It's kind of dangerous. So how does this look in Foreman? When you boot one of these machines and register it via Subscription Manager, you'll see a new card in the details. Now the facts are uploaded via Subscription Manager. Subscription Manager has some systemd bits now to copy information from the bootc status into a special bootc fax file. And that gets uploaded as a custom fact from Subscription Manager into Kitello. And that's set up just for you out of the box, assuming you're not using some strange old version of bootc. Now, you have the details here. You can see everything you'll see in a bootc status within your UI. You'll see the running image, the digest, you'll see what's staged, which means what's up next if you reboot. The available image is like what you could upgrade to. It's a little bit different from staged. And then also what you'd roll back to if you ran the rollback command.
So the available image is what's in a repository that you could pull down and make staged.
That's the idea, yeah. But there's a certain, oh, go ahead.
Staged by the switch command?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe running the upgrade might also stage the image, and I always forget the difference there between staged and available, but the documentation can help out there. Let me see. Okay, so before I go to the next page, what's nice here is that when you see this information, I talked about running these commands. If you go to the remote execution job for a host, or hosts plural, you'll see new jobs for all of these. We have jobs for each bootc action. We have one main one where you can select your action and then you input your container image. I think it'd be very neat in the future if we just auto-fill that with something you've synced. We also have the booted containers overview page, and you'll now find this in, well, I suppose in nightly-ish, which will be released soon. You'll see this next to the new container images page. And what it shows you is all of the container images that are booted in your environment. So there's the image name, the number of hosts that are using it, and also the count of different digests. And that's because for containers, the tag moves. It gets retagged to new content. So what does that mean? That means that you can have hosts running old digests. The more hosts you have, or sorry, I should say the more digests you have under this, the more drift you have in your environment, so to speak. So the goal, I would say, is to reduce this to a single one, perhaps. And this page was kind of a new idea, so we're looking for feedback if folks use this. If you think there's new things that would be interesting here, or if you think this is unhelpful for some reason, we'd love to hear. Now, this is even more interesting. Again, more things that we think maybe they're helpful. We'll see. So with transient package tracking, I'm actually going to do this slide in reverse. What you see here is persistence. You can see some of these packages are persistent and some of them are transient. Subscription Manager can look at the OS tree database. I don't know exactly how it works, but it can tell if the package was original or if it was installed. And well, that's with an open pull request that isn't merged yet, which I will get to. With this data, we've created a bit of UI where you can select the transient packages that you wish to persist, and we will make a container file command for you. So just in case you wanted to copy and paste it into a container file, you can do that. And Hammer supports it, and so does the API. And it's a small thing, but we figured it might help. Now, the transient, because I mentioned Subscription Manager isn't working with it yet, we do have a banner at the top. If you don't have any persistence data, we tell you, hey, this data will be available in a future version of Subscription Manager. We decided not to hide the column because at some point the data will be available, and we didn't want people who had older versions to miss out on it. So until that Subscription Manager feature is available, it'll be blank with some dashes, and then it will fill in later on. And we don't anticipate it to be too long. Okay. That was kind of what we have existing. Are there any questions up until this point?
Foreman integrate with different image registries other than Catella, or is it an exclusive integration?
So yeah, it can integrate with any. So what's nice is on that particular booted container images page, it'll show you the image source regardless. I actually think, yeah, so for example, here it's coming from Quay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good.
Itself.
So, in fact, we probably should integrate more with Catello. I would say we're actually missing some of that at this point. But yeah. Any others? So, now, provisioning. This is something I think is very interesting. I've been doing some experiments myself. I know some users have already been doing this, so perhaps we could learn from you. But here are some things that I've seen. So, you have a couple of options for provisioning bootable containers. With Foreman, you can rely on Anaconda's OSTree container kickstart command, or you can create a disk image with bootc image builder. I'm not going to focus too much on number 2 here, but the gist of it is you have your container image, you run a bootc image builder command, and an ISO pops out. You can you have some configuration you can do, like adding SSH keys, choosing the root password, kind of some things you would do like in a kickstart sort of, or during Anaconda. And so that's one way to do it. You get the ISO, you add that to your machines, and they run. Now, if you want to do other kinds of automation, we can use Anaconda. So, couple paths. We have image provisioning and network provisioning. Both of these actually are going to be the same for the start. You need to create a kickstart script, so probably clone the original one, or maybe even start from scratch, that uses the OSTree container directive. The reason why I say start from scratch, if you're using maybe the kickstart default, is there are a lot of commands that aren't compatible with OSTree container. So you want to take those out and add them as you decide which ones you need. I have done this. I actually have a gist saved with what I've found works. Things like SSH key, adding registration, like firewall setup. There's a number of things that do work, but there are some that just your provision just fails because, heck, Anaconda maybe even threw a stack trace or two. Now, once you get that set up, what you want to do, or what I recommend at least from what I've found, is you use a host parameter with your OSTree container. So on your host, you set which container image you want to use, and then in your kickstart script, it'll just load it up for you, and then you can provision like that. Now, I mentioned some things that are a little bit funky. For example, OSTree container isn't compatible with the URL directive in Kickstart, so you need to add a custom kernel option, and we have a snippet for this. Or sorry, I should say we have a parameter for this. You would use something like inst.stage2 equals and then a path to the Kickstart repository. Now, Catello does know what the Kickstart repo path should be. I tried to use like variable interpolation and get it working. It wasn't quite right. So my recommendation right now is just to populate this manually. But because at provisioning time, we do know what that URL is, if we make some small changes, we should be able to make this nicely automatic. But there are other things we should do anyway, which I'll get to. Now, after that point, things start becoming different with these two stories. So for the image provisioning side, you want to associate, actually for both of them, you want to associate the Kickstart script with the operating system that matches with the host. That's kind of basic Foreman stuff. Then it branches off. So in my case, I use this tool called MKKS ISO. I think it's Make Kickstart ISO probably. And what it does is you can take the image and you can change some of the arguments. So in this case, I added inst.ks.sendMac and inst.ks equals the link to the unattended provisioning link for Catello, which if the MAC address is sent over, Catello returns the correct kickstart template. So with this image, essentially you've modified the normal like rel boot image to kickstart.
That URL to catello.com, is that supposed to be to your Foreman?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and it is a generic endpoint. So yeah, it's the URL for your Foreman. Exactly. On the network provisioning side, all you have to do at that point is provision your machine like you normally would. Pixie boot, whatever. Anaconda does the kickstart. It sees the OS tree container, and you're good. You just have to make sure that your host has access to the container registry as you're booting. If your container registry is unprotected, great, no problem. If it is protected, you do have to set the secrets up. I haven't tried this yet myself, but you should be able to add the secrets, I believe, to a file in an earlier part of the script that bootc should be able to pick up when it's building. But again, I haven't tried that yet. So anyway, network provisioning, you're good to go. On the image side, then you just have to associate the image with a compute resource via its hypervisor. So like in libvirt, in my case, I put the image in a place where libvirt could see it, created it as an image in Foreman, and then I could associate that to the Foreman host at provisioning time. And then you're good to go with your normal provisioning. So a couple of routes you can go here. Now, I think we should support this natively. And there's only a few things we'd have to do, I think, really to fix it up. We need API support for connecting a container image to a host. We need the proper kickstart template to start from, and then people can build from there. And really, that's the bare minimum. We can definitely do better by adding some way to connect your synced container images to this. I assume, well, I'm not sure, but most people will probably want to use what they've synced in Catello to provision these. I'm not saying you have to. But I have some other future ideas as well. Oh, okay, so I did have a slide for this. And I think we pretty much covered all of this. Yep. So frankly, a small project.
So when you say an API to support assigning the container image to a host,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
So in Foreman today, on the host create page, we would need a spot where you can add a container image that would be the bootc image for the host. Today, if you're doing that, you have to do it through a host parameter. And that's like a little bit of a hack. I mean, I won't say a hack. It's just not as convenient as using normal, ordinary host creation to assign it.
And so right now you create a generic host, I guess, and this would be a bootable container host? Or?
Yeah. So at that point, we would be able to tell that this is supposed to be a bootable container host, and we could probably make some decisions based on that data. So that would be helpful. But this at least would make it so the user doesn't have to assign a host parameter. They could just do it through the normal means. Like when you create a host, you can select other things like lifecycle environment. It'll be another option like that. Now, before I move on, any questions about the provisioning stuff, since that was a bit heavy? Okay. So, a couple other things, a bit tangential to the bootable containers, but I really think in Foreman, we need to start showing vulnerabilities. This is a picture of Quay's website. And really, Foreman ought to be able to do the same. Catello. Previously, we did not support container push. You could only sync. And most people would then sync from some source, like Quay, Docker Hub, whatever, and it would show you the vulnerabilities from there. So you'd see the vulnerabilities, you'd sync, great. Now with being able to push content, there's no upstream source necessarily. You're building your own container, you might push it directly to Catello. There's nowhere you see the vulnerabilities. I find that as a gap. Now, there are some ideas for how we could actually get these vulnerabilities. The thing is, we need a source, like a database, to get these vulnerabilities from. So, exactly, Catello shouldn't rely on upstream reporting. And one idea that just some basic research is going into is to actually use what Quay uses to show the vulnerabilities. And that's a project called Claire. Now, Claire is a service that scans many vulnerability databases. I think there were like, on the website, it looks like 10 or something from different distributions and different links. So you don't have to worry about it being for like only a certain type of container image. And Claire is neat in that, so it scans for these vulnerabilities. It has webhooks when there are updates to the vulnerability database. So you could have a webhook telling Foreman, hey, I've updated something, come reindex me or whatever. And generally, it returns vulnerabilities per container manifest. So you could imagine either Catello could give a list of all of the manifests that are in a synced image, return the vulnerabilities, and show it. It's pretty straightforward, right? The thing is, there's a couple of fun points here. Claire does need the manifests to be on disk. And that's a problem if you want to use on-demand syncing, because, well, the manifests aren't on disk until the client requests them in Catello. So that means you would need to sync the whole thing. Maybe that's a small price to pay. Maybe there's a workaround for this. Yeah, Dennis?
Well, I was thinking that maybe the on-demand syncing in Pulp could change, because the manifests are not very large, and we could treat them as just metadata and actually pull them down without pulling down the blobs.
Sure, because the blobs are the big part, right? Yeah. That's a good point, because the manifests are like metadata, aren't they? Or they are metadata, actually. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that Pulp is adding integration with OSV, or what was that database?
It was OSV. That was one of them, yeah.
For some content types, we've already added support to take an existing repository and ask OSV what vulnerabilities are present in this repository.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that more. I've heard a bit about that. Last I heard, I didn't know if any plugins.
We should add it for container.
Yes. Okay, so if Pulp natively supports it, that would also be even better, because Claire is another service you'd have to manage. You'd have to run it. A system administrator would have to worry about it. So that's a heavy thing to consider. The other question is, if we want this vulnerability data on request, would you want it to be consuming cycles in the background, or would you rather click a button and have it load? There's also a deployment model here. I mean, since Foreman is going containerized, it would probably make sense if we did run this to run it in a container. And then there's also the question of the communication to this service. Smart proxies are supposed to connect Foreman to external services. It's a little bit strange that we talk to Pulp directly from Catello, because really, ideally, we would go through the smart proxy. It's just a nice, clean model. It makes it easier for architecture. So I would say in this case, probably, if we did talk to Claire, we probably should do it through the smart proxy. It's still really early research. I'm looking for feedback on this. It would be nice if we could use Pulp right away, but as always, if anyone ever has ideas, come talk to me. We're always looking for RFCs as well. But generally, I think soon, Catello does need to show these vulnerabilities one way or another. Actually, before I go on, are there any comments about that? Cool, so now let me show off some of the bootable container stuff. I've got a little time left. Let's see.
Based on your issue tracker, does it look like that anybody in the community has tried this out yet?
Tried which out? Like generally
Yeah.
the bootable container stuff?
In Foreman, yeah, in Catella.
We haven't received any bug requests.
Okay.
I've heard just from people at the conference, some folks have tested it out.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Actually, has anyone here tried it? Okay, well, I guess you'll be seeing new stuff then, huh? All right, so let me just show you around a bit here. So my hosts, my inventory, this is well, it's a little bit squashed. Maybe I'll hide this. If y'all know about how you can manage your columns in Foreman, we have a new column that you can add, which is called the type. And it's either image mode or package mode, which is nice. So I have a few package mode machines, have a couple image mode machines. I've got one here that I've provisioned from a repository, a bootc repository that I synced into Catello. Or I shouldn't say I provisioned it. I did not provision it with this machine particularly. I registered it. If we go in here, let's see. You can see the image mode details like I showed before. We can see the running image is the CentOS Stream 10 one that is running on my machine. I had a rollback image that I was testing before. Let's see, if we go to content, what do we find? There's a new banner warning you, hey, package actions are going to be transient, so be careful if you apply some errata. We can see there's no persistence data on here. That's because it's not a feature yet in Subscription Manager.
Yeah, so what is that column going to show? A number of persistent packages?
So it will say either transient or persistent.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is the list of packages, okay.
Yes, exactly. So this is the list of installed packages on my host currently.
Okay.
Now, let's see. If we go over to the new container images page, I'll use the search here. I really appreciate this new search bar. I think it's new in the past couple of years. So the new container images page is kind of fun. We can see a couple images we have here. What I really like about this is if you go over to here, you can view the pullable paths. So now you have something you can copy and paste directly. We didn't have this before, which I thought was kind of silly. So now you can just go to the UI and see which containers you want to pull. But anyway, so this is the synced tab of the synced container images. Now here's the booted ones. And you see that I have one image that's booted. It's it's a lamp stack. And I've got one tag for Stream 10, and I have 2 digests and 2 hosts. So one of my hosts here is using an old version. And that's not great because, well, it's old. So what I would do here, and actually, I believe, oh yeah, go ahead.
How do you know which one is old? Yeah.
That's a great question. And that is a question that has come up before. And I believe we might be able to fix that by using some kind of version. But for now, that's something to be fixed.
Labels or annotations.
Yep. Yeah, labels or annotations should be able to help out there. But now the thing is with image mode also is I believe these machines should be auto-updating. I know they can check in. I don't remember if it's on by default. But the idea is that they'll update themselves automatically. When reboot happens, they'll be on the new image. So if you have all of your machines updating regularly, you shouldn't be having drift. And we also have a link here if you want to see which host is actually tied to this. And you can search. You can search on host parameters in here. This is actually technically a host listing page that just looks like a container image listing page. And then I'll just show quickly, if folks are perhaps even new to Catello. So I have a product here which contains my repositories for CentOS Stream 10. And then this is the repository that I synced, the CentOS bootc lamp Stream 10. And all I had to do was I connected it to my personal repository by adding a registry URL and then an upstream repository name. I synced that, and then the image was synced down to the system so it could be shared. Alternatively, you could push it as well, since we support that. Now, particularly in this case, I only included the stream 10 tag because I also had a stream 9 one. I'm just showing some of the things you can do when syncing a repo in Catello. That's more or less what I wanted to show. We have a few minutes for questions, or if anyone wanted to poke around any other parts of the UI, happy to do so. Yeah?
I have one question. So I have a client for which we run about 100 OS3 based systems right now.
Oh, nice.
With Microshift in it. It's a really cool platform. One of the big pros of that platform is that OS3 based updates are both transactional, just like this, but also differential. So you don't have to download the entire image if 90% is the same.
Right.
How will Catello handle that? Can it do can it chunk images that are uploaded into it or synced into it into smaller bits that can be synced by the client selectively, or does it take it in as is?
My understanding is that that is handled by having the different blobs be in there. So hopefully when the image is being rebuilt for that same container, it's being built from the previous version of it, and whatever modifications are made as an additional blob in it.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is just a theoretical experiment I've had in my head myself about this.
Right. So no, the reason I'm asking is because from what I know is normally that you can make basically every step in your container file is a layer, a container layer, but in OS3 every package is an object. So it's scattered even further, making even smaller differential updates. And because we for those that don't know, OS3 is supposed to be succeeded by Bootable.
Yes.
And from everything I've read so far, this is for me the one biggest point, because for context, all of those 100 machines are buses. So they only have a 4G or 5G connection, which data is expensive. So if you don't have to transfer 90% of the image every month, that saves you a lot of money.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
okay.
I was just curious how Catello would happen.
So I think it's also, we have to separate the, like, what Bootsy does versus what Catello does. Because in this case, what's nice, at least from Catello's standpoint, is we're just talking about container technology, essentially. And Catello supports the OCI container registry endpoints that are required. So theoretically, if that's supported by how the container is set up, then yes, we should be able to support it from Catello's standpoint. But what I can't speak to is if Bootsy downloads just what it needs to. I mean, yeah, actually, I can't really speak to that.
No, I get you. No, I think it's more a discussion of who does the layering. Is the layering done by the container builder, or is the layering done by Catello, or can Catello slice it even up further? That would be the main.
Yes, that is a great question, and yeah, I'll make a note. We can learn something about that for sure.
You're not the first person to bring up this concern.
My company is a Red Hat partner, and I've been to Red Hat meetings in the past year, and I've asked the same question, and it was like, yeah, good question.
It is very new technology still, so which is great.
But it is really good technology, because I've seen people run this on Fedora desktops, switch to Bazzite, switch back to Fedora, switch to something else, and keeping their home directory and everything else. So it can make your laptop even better than it already is. Yeah,
and for development as well. I mean, besides thinking about running things in production, I mean, it's just nice to be able to switch to a different flavor if you're a dev.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I assume if a client is performing an upgrade, it checks the image that it will download, and then calculate the diff or something, so that will determine how much it needs to download. So if
Well,
you're doing a very big
not normally in containers. So containers are layered, and the layers, the different layers are checked. If the layer is the same, then the same layer will not be downloaded again. But if that layer is 500 megs and there's a small diff in there, it will download the entire 500 megs.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to prevent.
Yep.
So CI, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
If you just want to try the bootable container images, I really recommend using right from the get-go the Bootsy image builder. Just to begin with to test it.
Yeah, I would say Bootsy Image Builder is a great way just to try it, period. Because you just pop out an ISO, you can plug it into libvirt, and you're good. Yeah.
Any considerations further, if you want to try to use it more? I mean, because the Kickstart, I guess, is more flexible.
Yes.
That approach is more flexible for the long term, I guess.
It is. So if you want to automate, definitely I would go the Anaconda route. If you're just going to make a couple machines, like what I do for my personal development, yeah, the Bootsy Image Builder is great. You create them. What's awesome is you just need to create the machine. Once you can have Bootsy on something, you can switch to whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, exactly. So then the ongoing maintenance is the same in both ways. It's just, yeah. Okay. No, thank you.
Yes, exactly.
And as an extra message thing that you can do with Bootsy, all of the testing you normally do in your pipelines for making container images, see if they actually work, you can do that with your operating system images now as well. So
Exactly.
you can have some validation. So does this thing actually do what it promises to do after the update? Yes? Okay, then we deploy it. If not, well, the CI will kill it on that.
Yes, I'm very curious how CIs are going to change when this happens. It's going to be interesting. Any other questions? Cool. Well, we can wrap up early again. Thank you all.
Thank you.